Well, guys, are we really surprised by anything anymore? Welcome back, YouTube and fellow resellers. My name is Kevin, the Stoic Reseller, and I'm back at you with another episode 3 of the Economic Card Talk. If you're new here, I buy new and used clothing, and I sell that on Poshmark and eBay. I am a part-time reseller with a full-time job and a full-time family. I am very data-driven, very knowledgeable in my niche, which is clothing. And if you're interested in this kind of videos, please hit the like, subscribe, engage with me below in the comment section, and let's jump right into it. So if you have lived under a rock and you're just not knowledgeable, or just maybe don't pay attention and just rely on people like me and other people, eBay's earning call for quarter 1 of 2024 was back on May 3rd. Listen to people. There's a lot of doom and gloom when it comes to the eBay and its financials. And what sellers feel, maybe you feel, maybe you don't feel, I don't know. But it's important to honestly read in and see what does Jamie have to say, what does their financial experts have to say, and what maybe the markets are thinking about the stock. The earnings were, came in at $1.25, so $1.25 per share, which was much higher than expected. The expected earnings was $1.03 per share. So obviously, whatever decisions they're making, whatever new endeavors that eBay is doing, is actually making them money. And whether or not you believe that, or whether or not you think it's based off or backed on the back of promoted listings or other ad revenue, it's kind of irrelevant. Because when we talk about this stuff, we really need to put ourselves into the perspective of being an investor, right? Because if the company was losing money and the expected earnings was lower than expected, Jamie would be seeing his just desserts, right? Meaning he would no longer be CEO, or he'd be on a time clock. So anyways, they go on to say that the GMV was mostly flat, but revenue grew 2%. And that's a kind of interesting, right? So if the product you have on the market and the value of that product is even, but revenue grew 2%, where did that come from? And I think most of us know, most of that revenue came from strong earnings from promoted listings. They go on to say that this last quarter, they paid $638 million back to shareholders via dividends and stock buyback, which, if you guys are not into stocks and this kind of information, anytime you see a company buy back stocks, that's generally not a good thing for innovation. Typically, it means that the company is overcapitalized, meaning it has too much money, and it doesn't know what to do with that money. And instead of sitting on it, it just buys its stock back to keep the price up. But actually, in the long term, it kind of implies that there's not much innovation, or the company's just super, it's already done everything it can do, and the innovation it does have is minimal, meaning it's a very mature business, which eBay is. eBay's been around for quite some time now. Go on to talk about where this revenue is coming from, what they see. So the focused categories were the strongest performers, guys. So as a reminder, the focus categories is eBay Automotive, refurbished goods in terms of, I would say, electronics or other household items, collectibles, specifically in the trading card area, and luxury goods, whether that is luxury watches, purses, etc. The biggest grower in this whole thing was actually eBay Motors, and they continue to enhance the buyer engagement with eBay Motors. They've enhanced or enlarged some of the capacity for some of the new buyer engagement tools, such as Guarantee Fit and whatnot. So eBay Motors is driving the largest growth out of the target categories on eBay. They're also still trying to grow the trading card market, specifically sports cards, but I don't think they're turning a blind eye to trading cards such as Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, for instance. They actually just partnered up with PSA, and if you guys are unfamiliar with that company, it is the most prominent grading of these cards, or at least what people perceive to be the best company that does it. And typically PSA graded cards have a higher asking price the higher you go, based on other businesses that do the same thing on an equal grading level. So partnering with PSA is actually very important in that regard. From my experience, guys, trading cards in all avenues has been very mediocre. It's not what it once was in 2020 and 2021, which is kind of surprising that eBay's still trying to drive home that market. I'm wondering if they've invested a lot when they bought TCG Player, and then now they're doing all this other stuff like eBay Vault and everything, which, speaking of eBay Vault, if you listen or read the transcript from the earnings, they're actually relinquishing eBay Vault to PSA, and they're basically spinning that off as a way to intertwine the two companies in terms of the business venture. So I don't know too many people who took advantage of eBay Vault. From my understanding, it was a pretty decent service, but overall the trading card market isn't as strong, and it's very specialized now. So if you were someone in 2020 and 2021 that was going and lining up at Target and Walmart just to buy these cards, you either made it or you didn't. So for most people, they didn't. It was just kind of a very short-term profitability to the moon type deals. And from my perspective, the biggest players in the market are the ones benefiting at the moment. There's two things where you want to read in between the lines here. The first one is they are pushing these target categories, right? Which would, again, is eBay Motors, refurbished goods, collectibles, and luxury items. And later on in the video, I'm going to talk about another targeted focus for eBay that they don't actually classify as a focused category, but it's interesting to see the amount of innovation coming out of them for this category specifically. But so you want to maybe start focusing your business and what you are buying to resell to these focused categories. And that may suck in the short term because you may or may not be interested in these focused categories, but the writing's on the wall, guys. I think eBay is really, really putting all of their eggs in these baskets, and if the data is accurate as they announce, these are the baskets that will be successful in the next 1 to 3 years, guys. The second aspect of this is reading in between the lines. Is they made it a really strong point to note that refurbished and pre-owned goods were 40% of their GMV, which is a near record in the last 5 years on eBay. What that means is that they know their place in the market. They are driving home the want to have more used and refurbished goods on the platform. So if you're reading between the lines, that is probably a targeted thing that you really want to be in front of as they continue to drive home the fact that they still want the used and refurbished markets to be a greater impact on their GMV. eBay maybe has heard or are trying to acknowledge, kind of in a roundabout way, that there are a lot of these cheap Chinese, non-branded knockoffs of whether it be clothing, housewares, electronics, things like that are really flooding the market. And I think eBay really doesn't want those products on their marketplace, specifically because the amount of sellers that have that and can sell those is so limited, and the amount of money they make off of it, because 9 out of 10 of these items sell for probably under $20 shipped as brand new items. The amount of money they're making off of these is probably so minimal, but it makes up such a large amount of their GMV. So my overall opinion on that is they're really wanting more high quality used goods on their platform, and that is something that you shall be thinking about when you go to source whatever niche that you're sourcing. Keep that in the back of your mind, that eBay probably wants more of the mid to higher quality items. So maybe it's time to stop buying what we perceive to be like low tier goods that sell, and maybe start leaving those behind. It's called to the UK and German markets. Specifically, they saw a large increase in the used goods of these markets as a percentage being added. Now, I know in the UK they're doing a bunch of stuff to try to mitigate some of the new laws coming into place. Also, they're still trying to probably capture the largest portion of that market, because there are other companies in Europe that kind of do the same thing eBay does, but maybe not at the same scale or same efficacy. If you watch Polish Pete, he kind of does a lot of details on that. And I think eBay, if they can get their ducks in a line and their marketing and everything situated, I think that they can command and demand a very, very large market of the used goods in Europe, specifically in UK and Germany, which are the two markets that they are really keen on trying to get bigger in. If you're over the pond, across the pond in the UK or in Germany, I would probably be more confident in eBay's ability to grow the market share for you as a seller, because the market share is there to be had. So just keep that in mind. The GPU. So they had made comments on this the last 3 earnings calls, realistically. So they are stating that their GPU integration, basically where they wanted to double their capacity to do AI, is now complete. For me personally, in my store, I have seen a stability in terms of sales, in terms of the site, and everything like that, since their notice of the GPUs at the end of their quarterly earnings of last year. That's important moving forward, because they were highlighting the fact that AI, in terms of new products that they can offer to buyers and how they can affect their operating costs, is going to be more effective moving forward. That means moving forward, guys, is honestly, as they create more tools, I imagine the amount of employees that they're going to have is going to be reduced as AI starts to contribute more and more to their operating and their coding. But what is exciting is that they are able to offer new tools as to sellers and to buyers. And one tool that I want to highlight that is in its beta is the Look AI, or Shop the Look AI, which is a specifically, I imagine, for the clothing and accessories categories. And it is something that I am absolutely looking into, since I am a clothing reseller. And I want to understand how this tool is going to help buyers, and specifically what brands or what fashion they're looking for. Because if I can corner that tool, as that tool becomes more prominent on the site, the more steady my sales will be moving forward, and the more confidence I can have in buying certain brands or certain looks or whatever. As we all know, and we shouldn't be surprised, but ad revenue grew 28%, which, that's kind of crazy when you think about when their GMV and sales were about flat quarter over quarter. The fact that ad revenue increased 28% shows the signs in the times that we're currently living in. I am a contributor to that 28%, as I promote listings over 30 days at 2.1%. But I think there's a bigger growth in the market, and maybe it's eBay driving this. Maybe we can entertain that idea. But regardless if it's eBay's driving us to promote more, or it's the economic conditions forcing us to promote more, trying to get our items in front of potential buyers, or what buyers are out there looking to spend money. I personally think it's a contribution of both, with the economy being a larger factor in the overall sales statistics that we all are seeing in our own stores. So I really wanted to make that a mention, as none of us should be surprised that promoted listings is the largest growth category that they still see on the daily basis. The buyers, and specifically in the new and reactivated buyers, were positive quarter over quarter, meaning that whatever they're doing on the back end or via just the economic conditions, buyers are growing on the marketplace, which is inherently a positive for everyone involved. And I think one of the things that maybe is getting old buyers coming back to the platform is something that we heard on Primo Chemo's live being talked about, that was on another live, Josh Galt's, where he sold an item and was presented the cancellation, and in the cancellation he can match the price because of another item of the exact same that was being sold cheaper, which he inevitably did. But that is a new tool that eBay's AI has probably presented to buyers. Whether that's a good or bad thing, in the long term, that's good for buyers, regardless if it's a good or bad thing for sellers. So just note that buyers are returning to the market. Me personally, I think it has more to do with the economic conditions. People are looking for cheaper alternatives to the goods that they want, and on eBay, even for new items, you can still get a 30 to 50% discount on new items, and even deeper discounts on good pre-owned items of the same category that they're looking for. GMV was basically flat, and for whatever reason, they still expect quarter 3 and 4 to finally turn a positive GMV value, which again will be a positive thing in our marketplace. The higher the GMV, the better overall it is for us as sellers, because that'll attract more buyers, that'll attract more investors, that'll stabilize the marketplace overall, and eBay then will be solidified for another 5 to 10 years, and we can continue to profit off of that, right, guys? So if you look at the earnings or the stock price a couple days prior to the earnings call, the stock actually took a tank of over $3, and that's pretty significant when you're trading around $50, because that's about a 6 to 7% decline in market price, and that's pretty substantial. So that actually means that investors were very skeptical on if eBay was going to be profitable or really be anything meaningful to increase the stock ticker. Now that the earnings call has been out there and eBay's been, has had 5 days of stock trading after the earnings, it's actually rebounded quite a bit, and is up actually in the last 5 days 2.09%, meaning that, I think investors kind of see through the smoke screen of what eBay's trying to explain here. And until eBay is actually able to give some meaningful sales statistics, meaning that they were able to grow the UK market, they were able to grow the German markets, they are able to grow GMV and attract more buyers. So once everything starts to look positive is when the stock ticker is going to go up. And right now everything's just flat, right? So there's some investors that are looking at this, okay, well, they beat expectations in Q1 and they're expecting all these metrics to be positive by Q3 or 4. There's some investors that are probably looking at that going, I can make about 5 to 10% if I buy the dip now and just hold on for the next 6 months. And maybe that's a smart move, guys. Whatever your personal perceptions of eBay and what they're doing or not doing, I think eBay and its current management has a very detailed envisionment of what the company is going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. It's taking them a long time. I think it's taken them at least, we're seeing what's the accumulation of 3 years in the making. And I think we're really in this weird lull of a time where eBay is not promoting some categories while promoting some very heavily. And I think that's eBay's slight nod to you needing to be more specific and be more strategic when sourcing. And maybe, I know there's this isn't very popular on YouTube, and especially with some bigger resellers, but there are categories that I believe eBay is looking to just not promote. I don't think they're going to ever get rid of them, but I think there are categories that eBay just isn't going to promote, isn't going to go out of their way to try to strengthen, to prop up, and primarily because it's just, these are categories they don't see as valuable or growing in the next, 3 to 5 years. And if you're in those categories, so if you're struggling for sales and you're in those categories, and I'm not, and to be fair, I'm not going to pinpoint those because I don't want people to be mad at me for just reading in between the lines. I think if you're in certain categories that are not seeing current sales, you already know which ones I'm talking about. And what's kind of wild about that is people will get mad about that. And it's kind of surprising to me because they'll sit there and tell you that, oh, look, all these items are still selling. They may be selling, but, most of them are cherry-picked items. Like, I can go to any Goodwill and find an item in a category that I don't think eBay's trying to promote and see that it sells for $60 in 3 days and list it and it'll sell for $60. But those are few and far between, and I think we can all agree to disagree that eBay is certainly looking to very much prioritize only certain categories, guys. So keep that in mind when you're looking to maybe go full-time, maybe when you're trying to transition your business or to promote your business to the next level. Don't jump into categories that are probably on the decline overall. Okay, so my final thoughts overall, guys, is eBay is still pretty strong. My sales have been pretty strong. I've been incredibly busy throughout the week. I've been destroyed due to some personal reasons, just trying to get more fit, and the gym is just wrecking me. But my final thoughts overall, guys, is the economy is probably the greatest factor in what we're seeing right now. I think people are being driven to these secondary markets because the economy isn't as great as the feds want you to believe. Harder times ahead, guys, and we need to start preparing for those harder times. And the way as resellers we do that is look for more efficient ways to save money, be it sourcing costs, be it shipping costs, be it our personal finances, whatever the case may be. The ones who survive the downturn are going to be the strongest ones coming out of the downturn. And I'll leave you at this, and you can roast me in the comment sections if you want, but I don't believe the CEO of eBay is going anywhere. I think the board of directors and management overall is looking at Jamie as someone who has, good or bad, and to your perception, revitalized the platform to be something unique in the overall marketplace. And if you're looking within the targeted categories, guys, I think eBay is slowly succeeding in their strategic goals. And to be fair, and I will admit this, eBay is going to live and die by these strategic categories that they're targeting. If the trading card market literally ceases to exist in the next 3 years, that's going to be a big hit to their costs, their funds, and then their stock price. If luxury goods falls off a cliff, that also is going to be a very large hit to their stock price. If eBay Motors is unable to continue to grow their market share, I believe that is going to be a large hit to their stock price. I also do not see eBay looking to increase their focus on other categories. I do believe they are going to be focusing on fashion for clothing and accessories. I do see that as a growing field, guys. I think with this new AI tool, I think people will definitely be shopping online for clothing and accessories. And I think eBay's new AI tools for buyer engagement and retention will be working even at a seller's dismay. So guys, all in all, it was a very interesting earnings call. Kind of more of the same. I'm not surprised by it. If you're surprised by it, maybe you need to rethink your vision of what eBay is and will be. But let me know down in the comment section. What do you think about it? Is this good for sellers and buyers? Is this good for the market? Is this good for shareholders? Let me know. Roast me down in the comment section. Remember to please like, subscribe, and as always, rule the day.